Hi everybody, welcome to Cut the Kibble. I'm Paula and this is Miss Bella, my 12-year-old Bichon that I've been home cooking for since she was 7 months old. I was driving the other day and I thought, I tell you everything what you should feed your dog, but I've never done a video on what you should not feed your dog. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm not going to talk about the normal stuff that I hope everybody knows that you shouldn't feed your dog. Raisins or grapes or onions or chocolate. No, I'm going to talk about what foods you should not feed your dog if you are choosing to home cook for your dog or put some toppers on your kibble to add the nutrients to the dog's food. I'm going to tell you what foods not to put in. Okay, so we're going to start with rice. The only time that I use rice is when, and it's very infrequently, when Bella has a stomach ache, she's like having diarrhea. That is the only time that I would use any rice. And when you use a grain, you must cook it much longer so the dog can digest it. So you want it to be mushy. Why do I not use rice? Well, it's the reason I don't use all these foods that I'm going to list. I don't want to say motto, theory. It's not a theory, it's a truth. Anything that I'm going to put into my dog's body needs to serve a nutritional purpose. If it's any kind of junk food or food that is not good for nutrition, she's not going to get it. And rice is one of those. It has no nutritional value. Plus, you need to be careful where your rice, the country of origin, is from, because it can have arsenic in it. There's places even in the United States where there's heavy arsenic in the rice. So you need to do your research, but I do not do rice. So let's see, the second thing, I don't want to forget anything, so I have it all written down, is grains. Bella is on a dairy and grain-free diet. Now, you're going to hear me say rice and grains and some other foods. All these foods that I'm saying are in Kibble and are in those expensive mail orders of foods that you get delivered. And why is that? Because it's cheap and it's a filler. It's bulky, so they could put more of that and less of the good stuff. And grains is one of them. Grains can be barley, corn. I mean, corn is a definite no. Never ever give your dog corn. But barley, corn, rice, what other grains are there? Wheat. None of that is good for the dogs. Why is that? Well, first of all, their ancestors, the wolves, they didn't go out to a field and say, hey, I'm going to eat some corn today. There have been videos where wolves go into a field of blueberries and they eat the wild blueberries. But their ancestors did not eat grains. Dogs cannot digest grains. The reason, though, that I don't give grains specifically is because grains in the United States are sprayed with glyphosate. You have heard me say this before. So, you have a little dog. Bella's only 14 pounds. I'm not going to give her anything with pesticides because she's so little. And all these pesticides, what is it going to do for a little dog? Even if your dog is like 40 pounds or 70 pounds, we know that it's not good for humans. And, we're much heavier than that. It's not good for your dogs. You need to stay away from grains. Okay. Next thing. The only grain that I do give Bella on occasion is oats. But I make sure that it's a non-GMO or certified non-GMO organic oat. I've talked about it in all my videos, okay? Why would I do oats? Well, if I feel like maybe my budget is low that week and I need to spread the meals out, I will cook up some oatmeal. You need to cook it extra long because if you don't cook it extra long, it's going to be hard to digest. And all my treats for the flour, I use oats. I put it through the Vitamix and I make it into oat flour. I never, ever, ever use white flour or wheat flour. It is just stripped of all the nutrients and it's sprayed with glyphosate. All right, dairy. Bella is also on a dairy-free diet. Now, why is that? Well, dairy can cause a yeasty dog. What do I mean by that? If you smell the dog's paws and they smell like Fritos, that means they have yeast and they're itchy. Dairy can cause ear infections. So I just keep her off of dairy. Dairy is from cows that are fed GMO feed. GMO feed has glyphosate. It all goes back to the glyphosate. Now, she does get plain, organic, non-GMO yogurt once a day. When I have my yogurt in the morning with my manna, I give her a slice of banana with some yogurt, and she loves that. That is the only dairy that she gets. You know, when my husband is around, he wants to throw her a piece of cheese, and I feel like I'm a nag, and I'm like, no, she's dairy-free. You know, a little bit is okay. Don't be anal about it. But on a continuous basis, do not do dairy and do not do grains. All right, next thing, sugar. Why did I say sugar? Because with the yogurt, you never ever want to give your dog flavored yogurt. It is just laced with sugar. It could be like 3 teaspoons in a serving of yogurt. That's for talking to humans. I wouldn't do that either. Plain yogurt. So now, speaking of sugars, I just stay away from sugars. You know, I like my cookies, and I wish everything that I'm preaching that I don't feed Bella, I wouldn't eat. I try my best, but I do like cookies. You need to stay away from sugar. Sugar is just not good for dogs. It just wreaks havoc in their system. It's highly inflammatory. It could be a precursor to diseases and to being obese and to being diabetic. And you got to be careful. Sugar is in everything. Look at your toothpaste. More than likely it has xylitol in it. A good friend of mine had a husky. And you know, huskies are big dogs. Bella's only 14 pounds. Well, the husky got hold of the toothpaste. It went on the counter. It was just on the counter. And it ate some of the toothpaste. And that poor husky had to stay in the ER for several days because it was going through kidney failure. Husky's doing fine now, though it did have cancer a few years later. I think the vet said it was because of vaccines. You know, that's a totally different subject. Anyway, stay away from sugar. If you have toothpaste and a big dog that goes on the counter, put it in your medicine cabinet. All right? What else did I want to say about sugar? Oh, speaking of sugar, let's talk about vegetables, because you know I do a lot of vegetables for Bella with her meat, but you don't want to do vegetables that are, I say, high starchy, or we could say high in carbs. Now, what are they? Corn, peas, carrots, legumes, as in beans, potatoes. Now, if you look at the back of that Kibble box, Kibble bag, I should say, or your mail order food, all of those ingredients are in there. Why is that? Because they're cheap fillers. It's cheap for the companies to put that in the dog food, and they charge you ridiculous amount of prices. People think that they're getting a mail order food, like Just Food for Dogs. Or what are the other ones? I don't even know. There's one that I've talked about quite a bit. I don't know off the tip of my farm or something like that. Anyway, you're not getting your money's worth. You're getting cheap fillers. You're getting food that is not good for your dog. So you want to stay away from those foods. Now, some other foods are high in sugars like beets, but you know, beets are pretty good for you. But I would use that in a very minimal rotational diet. And don't be surprised If you give your dog some beets and then she pees a pink urine, that happened to me once and I freaked, but it was because she ate beets, and it could happen to you too. TMI. Beans. You're going to see beans in a lot of the Kibble and also in that mail order food. Beans are one of those foods that must be organic because beans are highly, highly sprayed in the United States with pesticides. All right. Now, I would use beans, organic beans and organic oats if I wanted a filler for my dog's food to stretch out the foods. If, I was on a budget that week or that month of rotation of cooking. But another thing you got to be careful with beans, don't want to use it a lot. Beans, legumes, as in lentils and peas. What happens is if you give the dog too many legumes, peas, lentils, whatever you want to call it, it's going to make the dog not produce and absorb taurine, which is an essential amino acid that is needed for a healthy heart for a dog. And a few years ago, just a few years ago, a lot of dogs were getting very sick and dying from a heart condition called DCM. And there's been a lot of debate back and forth, but the bottom line is that people were not doing they were doing grain-free food, buying it from the store. So what did the companies have to do? If they didn't put grains in, what kind of a filler, cheap filler could they use? They will use beans, and there were so many beans. There was pea flour, pea isolate, lentils, all in that kibble, okay? And these dogs were getting heart disease from it, okay? So if you want to do beans in a rotational diet, they needs to be organic, and I wouldn't do it all the time. She may get beans, I don't know, don't quote me, once every month, 2 meals or something. But I do be careful with that. Okay, next thing you want to stay away from is high fatty meats. Again, I'm talking about these mail order foods that you're spending a lot of money for. If you look at the ingredients, it'll say beef. More than likely, it's not going to tell you the fat content of the beef. And I have called up Farmers Food. Is that the name of it? Farmers something. They've actually blocked me on social media because I speak the truth. Farmers Dog Food, there you go. And I've called up Just Food for Dogs. And I've called and I said, could you tell me the fat content in the meat that you're putting in this dog food? They can't answer me. So I ask again, and they say, well, the minimal fat content is 8%. Okay, what's the maximum fat content? They cannot tell you that. Why not? Because more than likely they are using high fat content. Why is that not good? Well, for them it's good because more fat, it costs less. Look, when you go to buy your chopped meat, if you buy a 20% fat content, it's much cheaper than a 5% fat content. She does not get anything more than 10% fat content. And if you're doing grass-fed beef, you can do the 15% because it's something magical about grass-fed. Not a lot of fat comes out of that. And we'll talk about grass-fed in a minute. But so why is fat not good? Fat is needed in a dog's diet. And I've talked about that with fish oil and MCT3 oil and olive oil. But fat from conventional beef, too much fat is going to cause problems for your dog. They're going to get pancreatitis. Basically what that is runny poops, a lot of it. You don't want that, and you don't want your dog to have it. So make sure the meat you get is a low fat content. 10% or less, and if you have to get 15%, make sure you drain the heck out of it. I would stay clear away from 18 or 20%. Just stay away from it. So speaking about meat, I know your budget may not allow it, But grass-fed, if you can do it, is much better than conventional fed beef. Grass-fed, they're eating, again, non-GMO feed out there in the pasture, whatever they're eating. And grass-fed beef has more omega-3 fatty acids, 55% more than conventional beef. Now, don't think you're going to get all your omega-3s from the beef. You need to put in your fish oil for that, okay, and give your sardines. But overall, grass-fed beef is much more healthier. If you go to Aldi, they have very inexpensive prices for grass-fed beef, and so does Walmart, okay? Okay, fish. Some people really, they want to have a tight budget, so they give their dogs tuna fish. No, 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 never give your dog tuna. Tuna has high levels of mercury. If you want to do fish, and she gets fish, you could do cod, though remember cod is low calorie. That may be a time when you want to add the oats or the beans. Salmon, she gets salmon once a week. It's great for the omega fatty 3 acids. All right, and sardines is fantastic. Sardines are cheap, and she gets it every day in her food. Make sure it's it's just packed in water, and you're only getting your sardines from the cleanest bodies of water. Don't get it anywhere from Asia, and stay away from sardines that are from San Diego. Both of these places, that's where the Fukushima nuclear power plant exploded, and there's been shown waste in the waters. Who knows what's going to happen with Ukraine? It's just a horrible situation. Okay, fruit. Fruit is excellent for dogs, but you don't want to put it in their meals. Now, I do put blueberries, like a half a cup of wild blueberries, organic blueberries, in like 2 pounds of beef, and that's spread out. But you don't want to put a lot of fruit in their food they eat. You want to offer fruit on an empty stomach as a treat when you get back from a walk, or if it's hot out. If you give them fruit with the meal, it's going to cause a gassy dog, and it's going to be hard for the dog to digest all the food because of all the fruit you put in. So keep that in mind as well. So, I think that's it. I spoke a long time here. I'm going on 18 minutes, but I thought this video was important of what foods not to give your dog. All right, take care.